Beck and welcome to my reading list for the month of September. I have some really exciting news, which is probably going to affect my reading as well, but we bought a house. We have been looking for a house for like 2 years on and off during a pandemic, which was hard enough because things kept going up and down. But anyway, we got one, we're so excited, and September is our settlement, so when we move in and get the keys. And so I think this month behind the scenes we're going to be doing a lot of house stuff, so I don't know how I'm going to go in terms of fitting all my reads in, but I'm doing a September TBR anyway because sometimes timing can surprise you. But I just want to celebrate because we've been looking for a house for so long, so this setup for filming is going to change. I'm going to have a massive bookshelf and like my own space, and the times that I can film are just going to be so much more malleable, so hopefully it means more content, more versatile ideas, more creativity, more collaborations. I'm just really hyped. So September is when it begins, and maybe I can even do Vlogmas because I've never done Vlogmas before because I just haven't had the chance to in the environment that I'm in. So with my own place and my own space means more room for ideas and moving around the house more, so I'm really looking forward to it. Anyway, that aside, let's get into the books that I want to read in September, hopefully. We'll keep it nice and simple to start out, but soon we're going to deviate into more thicker reads. Check Please is on this list. This is a hockey story romance between two boys, and that's all I know. A lot of fans of Heartstopper recommend this as well. It is also a webcomic that has been traditionally published, and that's enough for me to be hooked on the premise of the story, and I hope that I end up loving the art style. I can just tell from the cover that I'm already a fan, but I'm really excited to get into this story. This is only volume 1, and I'm eager to get my teeth into a new kind of contemporary romance queer positive story. So that's why this is on here, and given that it's a graphic novel, I'm looking forward to getting through this in like one sitting. So this looks adorable. I'm very excited. And then we've got a carryover from August's TBR. I do have 2 Terry Pratchett books that I haven't picked up yet. One of them is Guards. I think the other one is Knights something, and I was planning to read those, but I'm such a mood reader and August was a really rough month for me, so I didn't get to them unfortunately. I might just put them down for now, like they're on my TBR, I'm going to get to them eventually, but I don't know how I'm going to go for the end of this year because I've tried to map out my months and I'm getting quite bombarded, so I don't know how I'm going to go. I'll just randomly decide to pick them up, I think, and that's how we're going to have to approach it. So those 2 aren't carryovers, but this book is, and that is The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. I've read I think 100 pages of this. I've read 184 pages of this, so further into it than I thought. And this is a 600-700 page behemoth. It's the last in the Mistborn trilogy before we jump into Era 2, which are shorter books in a different style but set in the same world 300 years later. And the next book in that quartet comes out in November. So the reason that I want to read this is because the continuation is happening and I need to refresh my memory. I also did 2 reviews of the first 2 books, spoiler free and then spoilers in the same video, so I'll link those below if you are keen on looking at my Mistborn thoughts, because this has been well overdue for me to finish. I'm again a really big mood reader, and while I was really enjoying this and I'm assuming I'm going to give it 5 stars, I just put it down because it was a big book and I wasn't in the mood for it. So I'm trying to amp myself up into continuing and finishing this so that I can get onto the shorter books in this series, and then obviously the new release in November. So that is what I want to do this month. We'll see. Because I have other long fantasy books, and typical of me, I've gone, I love this series now, and I've read the first book and I've gone out and bought the second, and it's a quartet I think as well. So I'm trying to make myself focus on this, but my mood might tell me otherwise. So that book I'll talk about in a minute. And that book is the sequel to Ruin of Kings. It's the second book in the Chaos of Dragons series called The Name of All Things, and like I said, it's a behemoth. Each book in the series is like 700 pages, so I'm committing to an undertaking. But I loved the first book, and I'm hoping that this only grows and builds on what we've already seen established. So the first book is quite difficult to describe, so I apologize in advance, but it has a main character named Kieran, and the narrative starts with him in a jail cell talking to Talon, who is a demonic shapeshifter, and she is trying to get a story out of him via this magical stone. So they're recording their story for different scholars, and so the scholar is the beginning of the narration, and then those 2 are narrating the story of how they got to this point in the jail cell. And so we hear from different perspective characters, but Kieran is our main character, and it's really about him with the royal family because he is a thief and he stole something that made the royal family notice him. And then from there, there's a demon involved and a whole bunch of shenanigans ensue. So it is very chaotic, but in a very good way. It's queer positive as well. There's different races of magical creatures as kind of people. There's like an elven race, there's humans, there's other creatures as well. And I love how it incorporated demons and thieves and all those brilliant fantasy tropes that you know and love into a prophesized fantasy adult story. And I love the characters. And I'm really intrigued at how everything continues in here. So much so that while I was still like halfway through the first book, I went and ordered the second one. So I don't want to put this off because this has been sitting on my shelf staring at me. And so I need to just scratch the itch and start it. I need to start it because I'm really hyped about this. And I did a lot of mental gymnastics in the first book because there's a lot of different royal houses, a lot of different characters talking about other characters, and there's also this magical necklace that includes body swapping that has been passed down for generations. So not only do you have to remember the different houses that people belong to, you also have to remember their alliances and who swapped bodies with who and when and who's now dead and who's alive. So the mental gymnastics was a lot, but we got there and I don't want to forget anything, so I need to read this ASAP. So that's why it's on my September TBR. And then continuing on my trend with sequels is Fevered Star by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is the sequel to Black Sun, which again I loved. It's another queer positive fantasy adult story, and this is about a character who is like a pirate ship queen, and she's also like connected to water and the magic of water and mermaids. There's her, then there's a high priestess, then there's a boy named Serapio, and he's kind of been brought into a cult at a very young age, and these characters meet up along the way, and there's a whole bunch of politics involved as well. And there's so much that I'm glossing over purposefully because I don't want to spoil anything, but just read the first 10 pages of Black Sun because it's like the story reached out and grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and like yanked me into the book. So good, so fast paced, but fast paced and gripping enough that you don't get lost along the way, and it just takes you for the ride. So again, while I was reading that book, I went out and ordered this so that I didn't have to wait too long. So this has also been staring at me on my shelf and wanting me to read it. So that is why it's in this TBR video as well. And then I figured that I should actually read some of the books in my BookTubers reaction series. So I'm going to Daniel Green's favorites for this, and I've got two here, and one of them is Snow Crash by Neil Shusterman. Neil Shusterman? I always get this name wrong. It's Neil Stevenson, not Neil Shusterman. Neil Shusterman wrote Scythe, and because Scythe has been so hyped on BookTube, that's the name that just automatically defaults in my head. Neil Stevenson is this classic sci-fi author, and I don't know really a lot about Snow Crash. I've seen it mentioned in a recent sci-fi that I read by John Scalzi, which was the Kaiju Preservation Society, and that book was like Pacific Rim meets Jurassic Park. Quite good, very gripping, very action. It's kind of like reading an action movie. I really liked it. But then this one was mentioned at the beginning of that, which was very odd because I had this sitting next to me on my shelf while I was reading Kaiju. Anyway, this is a sci-fi, but it's about the internet, and it says enter the metaverse, cyberspace home to avatars and software demons where anything and just about everything goes. I'm keen to give it a try, but I hope that the writing style doesn't alienate me. I'm going in and trying to keep an open mind because mine and Daniel Green's reading taste overlap sometimes, but not all the time, and I'm really hoping that this ticks a box for me. So stay tuned, we'll find out. And then the next one that I've got, and the last one on this video, is also another very thick fantasy book. See, I told you the graphic novel was the only short book on this video, and that is Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. I've tried Malice by John Gwynne. I finished it. I didn't love it. I gave it 3 stars, and it just felt like a chore to me for reading. And then this one, everyone has been hyping up lately. And so I'm hoping that John Gwynne has grown in his writing style and his capacity, I suppose, because I think Malice was his first book. So I'm hoping that this has grown in scale and depth, and it's been inspired by Norse mythology, but it's not written about Norse mythology. And so I think based on those like mythological vibes and the fact that I'm hoping he's grown in his writing capabilities, I think I'm going to get hooked by this. I'm really hoping that it becomes something that I end up loving because I want to like John Gwynne. I want to like John Gwynne. So keep your fingers crossed that this is also something that I like. But as for this video, thank you so much for watching. Let me know down below if you are reading any of these books or you've read them. I would love to know if you liked them or not. And let me know what's on your September TBR. Consider liking and subscribing. I would love to see you join this channel. But again, thank you, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.